guys, Premium Blu-rays here. I'm David. Another good week for me. I had managed to watch 10 films this week, 11 last week. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'll talk about the ones that I really loved and I want to recommend, and I'll just skip through the ones that I didn't. I might mention them briefly. It was my birthday last week, so I got some birthday money, so I decided to spend it on going to my local cinema to see two films. The first of which is a film called Saint Maud, which is a British horror film made last year by a female director. I can't remember her name, but it was a film that had a lot of expectations for me. It's A24 release, I believe. It's a horror film, so It's really hard these days to find really good horror films post Ari Aster. And it was also a film that just had a good kind of buzz around it, and I felt like it was going to be a film that I really was looking forward to and would enjoy, and it didn't let me down. It's a kind of film that had all the elements of horror that you would expect: sense of dread, foreboding, creepiness. Music was kind of pretty scary and loud. There were lots of setups by a director where you expected something to go badly wrong and it didn't. And it also had a mesmerising performance by the lead actress. And I think it was one of those films that you weren't sure whether you're watching a film about mental illness or whether you're watching a film about angels and demons and spiritual warfare. One of those films that was a bit ambiguous. There was like levitation scenes, for example, where you weren't sure whether that was in the protagonist's imagination or whether it was real. So very cleverly done, I thought. Very well done by the director, not to kind of give it all away. I won't. No spoilers, of course. But I think what was interesting about the film as well is one of the most disturbing scenes in the film was not one of the scenes of horror. It was a scene that was set in a pub, a scene that depicted loneliness and awkwardness and social kind of shyness in a really disturbing way. And I was maybe I could relate to that in my younger years, maybe, and maybe people who watched the film feel the same. But the way that sequence was filmed was fantastic, and I was literally cringing and closing my eyes in terror at that scene rather than the more kind of traditional horror scene. So Saint Maud, I think it's still at cinemas or the Curzon cinemas. Thoroughly recommend this movie if you like horror films. Superb film. I also saw another horror film this week called The Lodge, which I'll talk about more briefly. I picked it up from the internet. It's like a American release only, I believe, on Blu-ray, and it's a solid film, solid entry into the horror genre. Again, its usual kind of creepiness and setups. No extreme violence or gore, which was quite nice. But it was a film that I stayed with because I thought it was going to scare me. It was going to unsettle me as the film progressed. And as you got to like the hour mark, you were still not really sure what was going on, and you weren't convinced, you weren't scared, you weren't unsettled. I wasn't disturbed at all. And unfortunately, it didn't really deliver, and I left the movie kind of thinking that I was just wanting more. The ending I thought was also a little bit rubbish, very disappointing, but it was solid enough. I'm glad I watched it. Not one that I would particularly recommend unless you get it on a cheap view or something. But yeah, it was. It's very hard these days to make, as I said, to make Saint Maud. Comparisons to Ari Aster and people like that. The bar's set really high now. But if you want a standard horror film that will provide reasonable good jump scares and atmosphere, whatever, then I guess The Lodge will deliver. Another film that I saw, another A24 film that I saw, was called First Cow. I had no expectations of this movie, to be honest, because it was just about all I knew, it was about a cow, and it was set in kind of not the Wild West, but I mean, I'm not a fan of Western films, but it's set in kind of old America. And it was a film about a couple of guys who were kind of running a kind of a scam around stealing milk. And I think for the first 30 minutes, I started to fidget, and I wasn't particularly enamored by the film. I didn't care. And then something quite astonishing happened. Literally after 30 minutes or so, I started to genuinely worry about these characters, about the ruse and about the scam that they concocted, and it was so slight and so simple. And it's a very slow movie, and not a lot really happens dramatically, but the thing that blew me away was the whole point. It seemed that the director, Kelly Reinhardt, I think her name is, had managed to concoct a film where you cared deeply about the characters, you cared deeply about what happened to them, and the relationship between the two characters was wonderful. I mean, the friendship between the two guys was just beautiful, and there was a lot of tension and suspense in this movie. I won't go into detail other than that, the tension was far more powerful than any mainstream movie that I've seen. And it was just so nice to sit through a film that had no swearing, no violence, no sex. It was charming, and the whole film washed over me, and it just made me really happy. And it was a film about two guys stealing milk from a cow. I mean, pretty much. The other thing that was interesting was the relationship between one of the characters and the cow itself. Beautiful, very hard to explain, but you look at the poster art and you look at the synopsis of the film, you'd probably be put off, other than the fact it's an A24 film. But I absolutely love this film, and I am going to check out the director's other work. I think I've already bought A Certain Women. And I'm going to watch Meek's Cut Off as well, just because I think this director's definitely got something special. I think my favourite film, actually, that I saw this week, even though First Cow was amazing and Saint Maud was amazing, I had a really good week this week, was a film from 2004 called Kamikaze Girls, which I watched on the basis of I loved a film called Confessions, a Japanese kind of thriller drama from, I'm going to read this, a Japanese director called Tetsuya Nakashima. And I loved the film that he made called Confessions. I watched it years and years ago. I rewatched it recently, loved it just as much. Please check it out if you haven't seen it. It's hard to get though, to be honest, with English subtitles. I think Third Window do the release if you can get hold of that. And I, for some reason, never checked out his other works, so I checked out his film called Kamikaze Girls, and oh my word, absolutely blew me away. I mean, the first few frames or few minutes, it was just an assault on the senses of colour and flashy editing and style. And I mean, he did have this kind of style in the previous film that I saw, Confessions, but the set designs, the costumes reminded me of like a Wes Anderson movie, or Wes Anderson and Sion Sono kind of mix. So it's crazy, absolutely crazy. It was like a visual roller coaster. Had kind of a whirling plot which didn't really have a lot of substance, but it's really a film about a friendship, teenage friendship between two girls, and it has a lot of subtext on teenage alienation and the unlikely friendships that are sometimes forged between teenage girls. I'm not an expert on teenage girl relationships, but there were lines like, so what if I was deceitful, my happiness was at stake. I love that. And it also had strange comedic elements where it would bleep out brand names like Versace. Now, to me, I would start rolling around with laughter. So maybe it's a film that won't appeal to everyone. But I think if you want a visual feast, then Kamikaze Girls, you can't do wrong. Can't go wrong. Charming film. There was no extreme violence or sex like you would find in a Sion Sono film. Yeah, I mean, Kamikaze Girls is a film that I would thoroughly recommend if you like quirky, Japanese movies like I do. So yeah, great stuff. Kamikaze Girls, check it out. So I went to cinema last night to see a film called Ammonite. That's my second birthday treat. The film closed the London Film Festival, so that was quite special. It was introduced by the director, and the cinema was full. I went in completely blind, had no idea what the film was about, other than it was a costume drama starring Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan. Probably pronounced it incorrectly. And he came up straight away with the certificate. I think it was a 15 or maybe an 18. Just said strong sex. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, it's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. It was a love story. The sex was very strong. That did sort of take me by surprise. But I did kind of lead the movie underwhelmed, disappointed, to be honest. My comparisons were a bit obvious. I compared it to Portrait of a Lady on Fire and Carol. Probably shouldn't have done, but I did. And I thought the main thing that I took away from the movie was Kate Winslet's performance was just mesmerising and wonderful. I read a review afterwards telling me it's a kind of a character study. You look at it that way. So yeah, I can get that, and maybe on rewatch I will see that. It was just a bit slight. You knew pretty much where the story was going. It was quite predictable. Lots of close-ups, which were cool. Lots of nice soundtrack. Music was beautiful, actually. But yeah, it didn't really float my boat. But I think it will be a film that maybe gets a cult following and does get a lot of critical acclaim. I heard someone call it sublime. It was a very slow, sublime movie. I get that. It was a good film to watch at the cinema, actually, because on the big screen it looked amazing. So would I recommend it? I would recommend it. Yes. Was it for me? No. But on rewatch, maybe yes. We shall see. But that was my thoughts on Ammonite. Just go through the pickups that I got this week as well. Finances are a bit limited at the moment, so these are cheap pickups that I found, but they're all good. The first one I got is a film called Cold in July. For some reason that was £2.48 on Amazon with a slip. It's a film that I loved when I first saw it, and I've been meaning to buy it or rewatch it for a while now, so happy days there. A film that I don't know much about called Paprika, which is like an anime movie, but it's been recommended by a friend, and also it's quite high up on my Letterboxd watch list. Leviathan, a Russian film that I've seen a few years ago now, but I want to rewatch it. It was a good movie. And also Force Majeure, the original, not the American remake, which apparently is rubbish. Force Majeure, £6. And the last one, not cheap, it's quite expensive actually. They've got this from Yes Asia. This is the Ang Lee Father, I think it's called, the Father trilogy, including the films Pushing Hands from '91, The Wedding Banquet from '93, and Eat, Drink, Man, Woman from '94. So as you can see, it's quite a nice little box set. And it's got inside the 3 camera rays of the movies. There we go. Very nice. Cost me an arm and leg though, with import taxes. But I mean, Ang Lee's a master filmmaker. I haven't seen these early works from him. I've just seen the big famous films from Ang Lee. So I thought I'd give this a go, and looking forward to that. So that's my pickups for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next week. Goodbye.